Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. I am Joy Brand Richardson, coming to you from actually sunny New York City. It was pouring here this morning at JCC Association's Continental offices. We're really happy to be here today for a number of reasons. First of all, we have 30 people on the webinar with us and many more who are going to watch this as a recording. And the other reason that we're really happy to be here is because this has been a project that's been in the thoughts and minds of us for a while and has actually come to full circle, and now we're able to present you with this training tool. We are using this as a pilot. We're using this as a first-time idea, and we're hoping that what we call training in a box, this whole system of providing you with the material and the PowerPoint and the handouts will help you be better able to provide learning at your JCC. We worked with Jan and Scott to develop the curriculum. Many of you have been in workshops and seminars and at the professional conference with both Jan and Scott, and we were thrilled to be able to continue learning with them. And we decided that because of the work that we're doing in the talent management program, we currently have 20 JCCs that are enrolled in talent management, and that adds up to over 450 different people that work at JCCs who are part of the talent management program. And one of the things that we found out when we did some statistical analysis, we found out that supervision excellence and understanding and helping supervisors be as wonderful as they can be to the staff that they supervise is really challenging in some ways. And so we decided to tackle the topic of supervision excellence as our first training in a box and provide this for you. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to turn the controls over to Jan and Scott, and they're going to take you through what we're calling training the trainer. So this webinar will give you the information about what you received both in the email and what will be posted online. And it will also give you the behind the scenes tips and hints on how to conduct a training at your JCC at whatever level you decide to use the materials for. Pulling together small groups of people, pulling together the entire JCC staff, depending on how you choose to use it. But these materials are meant to give you the real hands-on tools, the PowerPoint, the handouts, and the facilitator guide that will take you through the entire webinar. So, and the entire training. And Jan and Scott are here today to take us through step by step of what's included in the materials and exactly how to do that. So I am not going to delay anymore. I'm going to invite Jan and Scott to take over the controls and start their portion of the webinar, and I thank everybody so much for being part of this today.
Thanks, Joy. This is Jan Sparrow, and Scott's sitting here with me. And we're coming to you from sunny Asbury Park, New Jersey, the home of Bruce Springsteen, and we just learned that according to USA Today, we are living in the coolest, that is cool as in hip and happening, community in all of the United States. So we offer an invitation for all of you to come visit us in this hip town.
Well, maybe not all at once. You might overwhelm us. No. You can all come at once. We actually even have hotels now. We're thrilled about this. We've been working with Joy and the JCCA with this for a while, this whole idea of training in a box. So we want to dive right in. And so what we're going to do, just to kind of give you an idea, is really just give you a flavor, but also talk about how to apply this, how to do it the best you possibly can.
So I'm wondering right off the bat, you can raise your hand, so find your little button on the dashboard, I guess. Our first question is, how many of you are sitting there thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to do this. This is going to be so much fun, leading a workshop in supervision. Let's see those hands. So far,
I'm not seeing it.
There
are a few. Okay.
A few of you. Hey, good going out there.
All right.
We got some people that are looking forward to it. And really what we want to do
About a third.
About a third. Well, it's okay. We kind of expected that. And really what we want to do is sort of help you become sort of more adept at how do I facilitate a workshop or a session using the materials that were provided. And as we work our way through this today, we're going to give you lots of tips of the trade. And we tried to make the facilitator's guide extremely easy to use so that we all have the opportunity to be successful in this event. So we're going to jump in and we're going to start talking about how does this work and how can you be amazing.
Yep. And the most important thing is we want to help you make it a positive experience for you and for your participants.
Amen.
So let's dive in. We're going to start right away with, let's see if that'll work. There we go.
Yeah. A couple of things up front.
All right. So real quick, and this is a question for you all if you want to respond. What's the difference between training and teaching?
Start typing in that box.
So in that question box, just pop up your answers. What do you think the difference between training and teaching is? Because this is significant in terms of, you know, how you might run your sessions. Any guessers?
Guessers. Guessers are good. Guessers are good.
Is that real a word?
No.
Yeah, I think I just made that up.
So as we wait for a few people to maybe think about this, this is something that those of us that are in the world of training had to learn early on in terms of, oh wait, I think we have.
All right, so yeah,
I
now
can't
that
really see
coming,
this.
I know, I'm trying to
Trying
expand
to
this thing so I can see it. Training is very specific and practical. Teaching
nice.
is more broad. Let's see what else we have here.
That's some people that are really jumping in. This is awesome.
Training is giving them the tools and teaching is showing them how.
Cool. We're all on the right track here.
Training is hands-on, teaching is more theory.
This is good. People are doing a great job
Training is very
thinking
specific
about
and practical,
this.
teaching is more broad.
Right.
Teaching more lecture-based. Training more interactive. Let's stop right there.
Let's stop right there with some really good answers. And for those of you that were unsure or couldn't figure out how to do it, which I would be the one that can't figure out how to type, one of the things that we like to think about is this visual that teaching is putting information in. It's pouring information into individuals that may or may not have the information. Training is pulling the information out. The assumption is that these people that are in your workshops, you know, they've been doing the job. They have experience, or even if they're new, they've got some experience in their world, and it's helping them not realize they have a lot of this information, and you're trying to pull it out of them through good questions and some activities versus just being straight lecture. Because...
So Jan, so how do adults learn?
Well, adults learn, as you know, more by doing than just sitting. You know, since smoking is the new sitting. Now that would be sitting is the new smoking. What we know is adults need to participate. They need to do something in order to learn. Kids probably would like that too, but in general, adults more so. And what's even more incredible, and I'm sure everybody here knows, that the attention span of most Americans has dropped to, okay, everybody think of a number.
Hold that number.
Hold that number, and it's 3 to 4 seconds, as in click your fingers, and they're thinking something else. So this whole setup that we have is really to help you. It creates interactivity. It creates changes of scenery. It really does play to training, how adults learn, and keeping things moving.
All right, so let's take a look at what's in the box. We call it training in a box. So what is in the box that you got? Very, very briefly, you should have received the PowerPoint. Overall, that's yours. I mean, that is yours as the facilitator. It's yours to run. The handout, it's theirs. And one of the things we think about handouts is, remember, they're partial. They don't have every single thing in it, and that's on purpose because you want them paying attention to you and interacting with you. So that's why not all the answers are there. We also do know from adult studies of learning that if you actually give somebody a handout that's got all the PowerPoints and all the answers there, they stop learning. So that is one of the reasons that handout is a little bit briefer than you might think. And finally, that facilitator guide, that's critical. That is your go-to piece. And what we hoped is that we've created a facilitator guide that really helps you dive in. So let's take a look at the session itself.
And the thing to think about here is, as Joy mentioned, we're working on developing a number of these training in the box. And what we will do is they will all be similar. So what we're going to practice today or learn today or think about today, the setup of these sessions and this facilitator's guide It will always look the same. And that will help us really be able to, once we get the rhythm down in the first one, it'll be much easier when you do it the second time because you will have the rhythm down. So we're not going to change anything in terms, except for the words, obviously, but it will be a very familiar, comfortable facilitator guide, PowerPoint, etc., which will allow you as a facilitator to feel really good about the sessions that you're presenting.
And so what you see here, this is a, for those of you who do have your facilitator's guide in front of you, this is a screen capture from page 3 of the facilitator's guide. So we'll take you from left to right. What we'll have, what you will see all the way on the left side is timing. So each section, we tried to break it down minute by minute, and probably what you'll notice, this entire training is set for 90 minutes. The total, I believe, because I've been away from it for a little bit, adds up to 80 or 85. So we give you a little bit of breathing room, but honestly, it's not much. And so when a section says 10 minutes, you really need to be done that section in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And it's good, by the way, to use your phone or have someone maybe help you time. We'll give you a couple of hints later, but timing is crucial. And as many of you know, it's easy to get sort of away from the time. So that's something to really think about. These aren't suggested. These are really, you ought to try to do your best to stay within the time frames we've given you.
Well, and here's the other thing to think about. I do want to add this, and that is we built this to be 90 minutes specifically because that's about the absolute maximum length that anybody should be sitting, even if it's an engaging session. So if in your JCC you do decide that, well, you know what, we don't need to keep it to 90 minutes, we want to go longer, we want to have longer discussion, that's fine. However, make sure you take a break somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes. Give people at least a 10-minute break to get up and stretch and walk around. So if you're not going to do 90 minutes, please give them a break in between so they have a chance to stretch their legs.
As Joy said, it might even be possible to break this into 2 days. I think this is an area where you know your folks,
True.
You know your Jay, and you know this is something maybe to think about in terms of how do you want to do the 90 minutes, whether it's 1 day or 2 days. In the meantime, timing is crucial. So we really want to talk about this overview slide because this is critical. This particular slide is really critical for every session that you're going to do. Not to mention, it really works for team meetings or organization meetings, so it's something to really think about.
And so, you know, just one final thing in terms of the page and how it is. You'll also notice on every page there's a capture of the slide that you're on. So when you're using your facilitator guide, a real quick check is if that slide, the one right now that says overview of the session, is up on the board and this is the page you're on the right page. If you're on a page that doesn't have that slide captured, you're on the wrong page. And then that final column, what we've tried to do is give you a lot of varying things. So where it says say, this is a suggestion. This is not mandatory. You do not have to memorize this. This is not a script. This is a just suggestion of how you might want to start. So that's to say. You'll see notes. The notes are, you know, given an activity. So this one is about who has some good news to share. This is what our experience has been in terms of doing that. And you'll note even down on the, further down, we give you some directions and instructions right on a flip chart or board to capture the rules of engagement. So we really try to, on that right-hand side, kind of identify, here's what you say, you know, here's some other things. The only suggestion I would have, because we've dealt with these before, is that you personally might want to highlight the say parts so that when you're on that page, you don't accidentally read out the note part to the participants, but so you can glance down and see quickly what you're supposed to say. So I want to return to, you know, what Jan talked about of why this is so important and how we start the session, and we're going to recommend you start all your sessions this way.
I'll do this very briefly. Good news. A lot of you have heard us talk about a meeting that starts with good news. It's important to start out a meeting with good news for all the reasons you can think of. Puts people in a good mood, a better space. We always like meetings and whatever to start out with good news. What's really important is rules of engagement. Even if you're just doing rules of engagement for meetings, we've given you some suggestions about rules of engagement. This is what kind of learning environment are we creating while we're in this room together. And we want to point out, too, that if people don't bring them up, we really believe you should be the one that suggests, and here are a couple more, and they are.
Well, the first one, and you can even see it in the notes we have here, and that is cell phones off the table. Some of you have heard us speak about this. The research on this is becoming more and more profound. Stanford did it. It's been done in the UK. They keep replicating it, and that is if cell phones are even visible, that they have now found the dialogue will not go to a deep level because everybody is expecting that what will happen with the cell phones, whether they ring, ding, buzz, or whatever they do, is more important than what's going on in the room. That's if they're even visible, even if they never go off. So we tell that research to people, and we ask them as a rule of engagement, cell phones off the table.
And here's the other one that isn't on that sheet, and that is we all know that we have certain people in our J's or in meetings, wherever you are, that like to talk a lot. So one of the things we talk about is the rule is engagement. That would be you and me.
Yeah, really.
So one of the rules we suggest often is for those individuals that like to lean in and talk a lot, maybe take a step back and let others have a chance. And for those individuals that are a little quieter, maybe this is the time to try to talk a little bit more so that you can become more comfortable and engaged. So we always like the idea of lean in, lean out. So it just gives people a chance, and it gives you a chance to not always be having the same people raise their hand or offer their ideas on what's happening.
All right, so what we'd like to do is kind of give you a flavor of how this might work when you have the PowerPoint up there, how you're doing it. And so what we'd like to do is we would like to, and I think I have the page number.
We do this as a professional.
Yeah, right.
I think it's page 9.
Yeah, it's you know what? Here we go.
It's 9 and 10, isn't it?
9 and 10. There we go.
9 and 10.
So we're going to try it out. And what we'd like to do is we want to take you a little bit through the concept and then through an activity. And so if you do have your facilitator's guide, you can kind of follow along with us, or you can just listen, but you'll be able to see how we use the facilitator's guide in this. And obviously it will go a little bit shorter because the only person I have to ask the question of is Jan. So that let's try it section may not be 8 minutes.
Yes, and you'll also notice that Scott's going to where it says say, he's going to play a little bit with those words, which you can do as well. I'll give you hints on how to do that later. So we're going to pretend like we're at your JCC and we are having this particular session.
And so one of the most important parts, here's how it starts. So one of the most important parts of this whole idea of supervision is giving feedback. One of the things we know is that if that feedback is delivered very effectively, if it's delivered with clarity, it can actually develop people's confidence, it can build self-confidence, it can strengthen your relationship with them. Yet the most critical part about feedback is us being aware as supervisors, and that is the difference between behavior and judgment. And so if you think about it, and I would ask Jan, I would say, so Jan, or I would ask the group, so what do you see? What is a behavior?
I think behavior might be something that I experience or see. I have to see the behavior. I see an action. Excellent.
Yes. And so one of the things we know about behaviors is that they are observable. You can see them in action. You can hear them. They're directly in front of you, and you can describe them very, very well. But too often what can happen and by the way, this happens to all of us. So please don't be too hard on yourself as a supervisor if you fall into this category. How would you describe judgments?
Wow, judgment's kind of hard. I think judgment is that like when I say, oh, she comes late, maybe she doesn't get up out of bed early enough to get here. It would be something like I make some decision based on what I see.
Right, right. And so the decision in that case might be what?
She should come on time.
Yeah, well, or she doesn't care.
Or she doesn't care. Thank you, Scott.
Oh, you're welcome.
But think about that.
So
we made a judgment based on just an idea that somebody walked in the door late every day, and we think, oh, I guess she doesn't care. Not thinking there might be other behaviors that lead to this.
And the biggest challenge here, and this is
why a big one.
This is critical. This is possibly one of those critical pieces in this entire section. and that is that as supervisors, our job is to really look at and reward or help correct behaviors. It is not about making judgment. And so to look at and and really look at your own self and saying, how well do you provide that feedback? And how well do you give that perspective? Because that can really impact your overall level of success in delivering a performance message. And so really when preparing for the conversation and throughout the conversation, be very mindful. Are you slipping into judgment? Or are you sticking with behavior? By the way, we always recommend in terms of feedback, unless it's on the fly and you're walking past somebody and you see it, and that is if you're preparing for a meeting, jotting down what are the behaviors you see. That actually helps you when you are preparing for it. And also remember to be honest. Too often as supervisors, we can fall back into the behavior of sugarcoating it and to make it feel less threatening, but that can lead to confusion because if somebody's being kind of called in to change their behavior, but then it's softened, they're thinking, then why am I being told I need to change this? It doesn't seem that there's something wrong with it. And so the difference, so let's take and connect the behavior, and sometimes you can do this, even in terms of what you do, and that is connecting the behavior to the impact, even the impact it has on you or the impact it has on others. And that can really help them see how they might need to change their behaviors. So let's take a look at an example of the difference between behavior.
Okay, get your fingers ready. This is a little activity, so we want people to start thinking about typing.
And don't cheat by looking in the facilitator's guide.
Yeah, don't do that.
All
I'm
right.
not going to do that.
So let's try it.
I'm Jane.
Are you Jane?
I'm Jane.
You're Jane. So if we try this, here's what we'd like to do. We're not going to do all of these.
So these are on your slides, and you're going to ask people in your session this question, right?
So let's try it. And so the question is this.
Get them in the question box.
Look at this list. Are these judgments, or are they? And each one is going to be different.
Right, so let's start with them.
Are they judgments or are they behaviors? And so let's skip knowledgeable. Let's start with greets everyone. What do you think? And type this answer into the box.
You can always
what
just
do you
do
think?
B or J.
Is greets everyone a judgment or a behavior? Let's see if we can get people involved.
Starting with an easy one.
Let's see here.
It only has to be a J or a B. Start typing. Oops, I see some B's. Okay, we started with a simple one.
Well, first of all, by the way, I love that the Canadians spell it wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Spell it differently.
Sure.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Yes, so far,
everybody
we got it right. So greets everyone. And think about that. It's observable behavior. It's absolutely specific. I know what it is. So let's try another one. Let's try nice. Is nice a judgment or is that a behavior?
Ooh, somebody jumped in very quickly. Oh, okay. Now that you got that, here's our next question. Keep those fingers going.
Wow. Okay.
We know
we're working with the star. We're working with the star.
They're the facilitators. They're the facilitators. But here's the big question. No cheating. How do you take that judgment and turn it into a behavior?
In other words, how might you restate that?
Correct.
So instead of being a judgment, it's a behavior.
And be specific.
Okay. Treats others kindly. All right.
It's a little on the fence there.
Okay. Is nice to others. You're getting close. Or those. Think about that. So what does being nice to others really mean? What does it look like?
Okay, what's this one?
This one.
Our little box is so tiny we can't really hardly see the answers.
Service with a smile. That's very specific. Okay. Let me see if I can go back up and get that other one.
We're trying to read our little box. We have a teeny tiny.
Smile engages members in conversation. Yes, now you're getting it. Okay. You're getting much, much more specific. So it could be engages members in conversation, goes out of her way to help others. Excellent. And so that's the kind of thing that you want to do with the group. Let's try one more.
Can we just go back to kind for a second?
Okay.
The reason we do this is the hardest one of
Treats
all.
others kindly.
Treats others kindly. When we do this workshop, when we're in sessions, leadership sessions, and working on feedback and coaching and performance,
Yeah.
kind. Think about kind. Again, being kind. I thought I had on the list. It's funny, but kind is kind of
A judgment.
It's a judgment, because what's kind to me might not be kind to someone else. We need the behavior that signifies, indicates that that person is being kind. So going out of their way.
So one of the ways when you're doing this with a group, one of the things you might say is, gee, is there something more there? So what does kind look like? And they might say, oh, they go out of their way to help people. Or I notice that they always, if someone is not smiling, they walk up to them and ask them if they're okay. That is a very specific behavior. So one of the things you can do as a facilitator is help people really differentiate here, because we got some, delivering quality customer service, yes, and could you take that at like one step deeper? And that might be,
what are they doing
like,
to
so
deliver?
how are they doing that to deliver? And it might be they're listening very carefully to exactly what the person is saying. Well, it's almost like I can't go any deeper than that. And that's what you want to do. So what we try to do is get people involved. This one is really, really critical, and that is one of the reasons that we wanted to stay on it. By the way, thank you for playing really well. You came up with some really good stuff.
And just so you know, we're going to tell you what they all are. They are if you don't have the facilitator guide, we know that loves her job is, if you're thinking about this, it would be a judgment, because it's a decision we're making about this person versus what is it that that person is really doing that indicates that she loves her job. So be sure and check your facilitator's guide. We've tried to explain all of them. This one is really tough, and this is where you might be able to just dig a little bit for people so that they really understand. It's how to give really excellent feedback.
And just to make sure we're clear, on page 10 of the facilitator's guide, you will see we have talked about what each of these words are and how you could possibly change it. So under some of the judgment ones, it's how you could say it in a different way. Okay, so a couple of people just found it. Great. That's we're hoping you'd
Excellent.
see.
We're going to leave a little time for questions at the end, so make sure if you have questions to...
Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to talk a little bit about, okay.
Yeah, before we do that, we just want to say that we're going to transition into the next piece. And so all of the facilitator guides, all the pages, and each of the micro sessions within the session will be very specific to what we just did. There's information, there's a little activity, there's timing. So you'll get into the rhythm of it, and keeping track of time will become easier as you do it, because you'll just get a feel for how all of these work. So what we just showed you is just an example of how every little micro session within the session will operate, and there'll be no aberrations, so it gets easier and easier.
Yep. Excellent.
All right, so let's talk about what do we need to do to get ourselves really ready to be fabulous.
So a couple of things that, and I want to kind of put this in context. Jan and I have been doing this for a long time, and preparation is the key. And so a couple of things we suggest, because we also have worked with other companies that have used the train the trainer style. We've been lead trainers in those companies, and this first one is possibly one of the fastest ways for you to assimilate what's in that facilitator's guide, to really know the material. And that is, read the material and actually do the activities for yourself as though you were taking the class.
Yeah.
It will create a familiarity of you with the material, so that you're not looking at them and go, oh wait, I'm not sure what I do here, or whatever. Even play with the timing so that you know the timing as you go in.
I'm just going to also add here, nobody, at least according to the studies, nobody in a room, whether they're sitting or standing, cares if you're using notes or using your facilitator guide. So please, there may be people out there that want to memorize or whatever, but I would never say that you have to. It's really okay to use your facilitator guide, particularly if you've worked with the material and you feel comfortable with the material. your listeners, the people that are learning from you don't care if you use a facilitator guide. So don't think, oh my God, how am I going to learn all this information?
Yeah.
You don't have to learn all the information. Just keep that guide and use it. We've been Microsoft. You put it in a binder and you just turn the pages. It's like everybody knows you're using a guide and nobody cares. So it's okay. Don't think you have to memorize the whole darn thing.
One of the other suggestions we would make is in those few spots where it says say, where you are actually giving information, practice those out loud. We always sound great in our own heads.
Yes, we do.
And then what happens is we actually try to say the words and we trip over them. And feel free, again, to play with it. This is not a script. You do not have to say everything word for word. So if you can put it in your own words or reference things that are happening in your JCC, that becomes even much, much better for everybody in the room because they can fully understand it. So practicing out loud.
And we sort of assume that many of you have been doing this for a while, supervising and leading, and so you have some really good experience that you can incorporate into this. This is why I think reading it beforehand like you're doing it helps you, as I said, with timing. Where are the places I really know what I'm talking about? Where are the places I'm not quite so sure? So that I can really get myself to a point where I do feel comfortable. And practicing out loud adds to it. And use your experience because you're experienced.
The whole idea of preparing the room.
Page 2.
Yeah, so if you look on page 2, there are a few suggestions there, but we just want to talk through this a little bit. The most important thing is you really do not want to set it up like a classroom with rows basically facing you as the facilitator in front. That discourages interaction. And so, you know, as for tables or whatever, people tend to feel more, I don't know, comfortable sitting at a table because that way they can write if they want to. So, you know, again, but we would say, please, you know, don't jam so many people into the table that somebody has their back to you. You know, tables at the most should be on three, you know, filled in on 3 sides so that people can actually see you. You also might want to have an opportunity, so don't jam the tables in so close that you can't walk around. I mean, you might be a person that likes to walk. That is, we don't have that on here, but if you are a person, okay, we will touch on it. So preparing the room, that is getting in early, getting everything set up. You will need a flip chart, so make sure that's set and make sure the PowerPoint works. And then the final one.
Breathe. You know, this is a big one. You just got to breathe. We just really think that we've tried to give you a lot of this info, so just take a deep breath. Nobody cares. You've got to breathe. And it will help you just stay comfortable throughout the entire process.
So what I'd like to do is Jan has been doing this for many years. And she has some great ideas in terms of the disciplines that really make for great facilitation. So all right, so start us off. All right, so tell us, if,
notice we're stuck on if. The bottom line is, the biggest key I think that is in all of this is it's just not about you. It's about this event. It's about the information, the material, and it's about your learners. It's about them feeling like you care about them and all the focus and emphasis is on them. It's not about you. It's about the people in the room. I would say, don't read. You know, be prepared to make it your own. Use your own experiences. Use a conversational style. Sometimes, I'm going to say this sometimes can be really hard because when I was in an organization at Merrill Lynch, Scott was too, sometimes they're like where you are. You know a lot of the people, and they may not have seen you in this role as a facilitator. And so sometimes it's a little hard because you think, well, you know, I haven't always done this. They may know I'm not the right person, or they may know I don't really know all of this. It's okay, because remember, it's not about you, it's about them. Just if you prepare and make it your own, you're going to be absolutely fabulous. Back to training, draw information and knowledge out of your participants. Don't be afraid to ask them questions so that you can draw it out. I'm going to go back to, remember, attention spans, very brief. If they don't get to participate, we've lost them. If they're just sitting there listening, they're not going to be part of this. They're not going to play. Their minds are going to wander. They're not going to be present. So you really need to, where we suggest you ask questions of the group, ask those questions, and we're going to talk a little bit later about what happens if you don't know the answer. But in the meantime, ask questions and draw the information out of your participants. Always think about time. And one I keep going back to, besides how you get people involved. Scott and I spend a lot of time in every workshop we put together is how do we get people involved? How do we get people involved? Because they just can't sit and listen. By the way, the actual research is people can only sit and listen for 5 minutes at a time before you have to change the scenery or get them to do something or ask them a question, and then never forget to breathe. This is all going to be up there, so if you think, oh my God, I got to get that written down or she's talking too fast, that's all going to be out there for you to have. So let's talk to Scott about, this is the other big one that I think people sometimes are fearful of. I know when I first started teaching many years ago at the college level, I used to think, oh my God, or even when I was in Maryland, what if they asked me a question and I don't know the answer?
Well,
so Scott, talk to us about
all right, so the first thing, questions are your friend. So the first thing I would say is don't be afraid of questions, because they are a wonderful opportunity for people to truly engage with you. And by the end of that, they will be willing to walk out and say, wow, I got what I needed. It was personalized to me. And so really think about that. A lot of you we have everybody here some from big JCCs, some from small JCCs. So we have no idea how many people will be in your room. And so depending on the number of people you have, you might have to repeat the question, because
someone has a low voice.
Yeah, somebody has a low voice. And, because it also, by the way, if it's a more difficult question, repeating the question actually gives you a chance to think about it. We tend to like to do that all the time, also just to make sure that we've heard the question correctly. But if you're sitting with 2 or 3 people and you say, well, but okay, so your question is X. After a while, they're going to be wondering if you're really listening to them. So it does depend on how many people you have. Once the question is asked, very often, and this goes back to Jan's piece on interaction.
Training trick.
Very often, a training trick. There you go. It's a training trick. What we will do is we will ask if anybody in the room knows the answer to the question. Or we'll say, maybe not answer the question, what their experience is about that particular thing. Because since you're talking about supervision, you're going to have people of different length of service in the room. Yep. And somebody may say, oh, this is the way that I deal with that. This is the way that that's the way I do it. And again, part of the challenge there is somebody may suggest something that's not how you want the group to do it. So you may have to say, okay, does somebody else have another idea? And go. But we like to turn it over to the room because it gets them involved. So if you do have to answer the question, so nobody in the group knows, first of all, we tend to like to use the name of the person when you're responding to them. And that goes for especially, within your JCCs, you'll probably know every single person in the room. This is also a suggestion that we use, especially in places where we don't know the people, that very often you'll ask what somebody's name is. And the reason we do that is they are now not anonymous, and they have a tendency to be gentler when they're not anonymous. You won't have that problem in your JCC. That shouldn't be a problem. The next suggestion is when you're answering a question, keep it brief.
Under a minute.
The best answers are under a minute. And so you do not want to go into a long rambling thing about, all right, let's start with the beginning of supervision from the beginning of history. No, you don't want it. Answer the question. If somebody asks you a yes or no question, answer it.
And then this is my favorite one.
And this is something that I had to learn when I first started working with Jan, when I was hired and started working with Jan, and people would ask me a question. If I didn't know the answer, I would dance to at least answer like what minimal part of it I knew, and it was ridiculous. If you don't know the answer, admit it, and just tell them, okay, you'll find out. And that finding out can be, you can call us, call Joy, whatever, and then get back to them on it. You will become more respected by admitting what you don't know. They don't expect you to be the absolute expert on this. What they do know is that you're facilitating, you're leading the session. We still get asked questions that we don't know the answers to, and we'll say, hey, we'll get back to you on that.
And by the way, the studies out there, if you're thinking, oh my God, research studies, whatever you want to call them, people don't care if you don't know all the answers. And as long as you let them know, you'll get back to them and give them a sort of a time frame. They're just fine with it. So don't think to yourself, oh my God, what are they going to be thinking? They're going to be thinking, not all of us know all of the answers to every question. So it's really okay. I feel like this goes back to, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about you being authentic. It's about you doing your absolute best because you're prepared. And that's the expectation, because the learning is really, you're guiding them. They're the ones that are they're doing the learning. So you're just their guide, like the spirit guide.
Ooh.
I exercised today, so
Ah.
I'm inspired. So excellent.
So
Good job, Scott.
we want to talk about one more thing before we ask for questions, so get those questions ready. But that is, in the midst of all of this, when you are standing up in front of them, what should happen? Well, that's when it's showtime.
Oh, Scott into the videos.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. So the whole idea, how do you really come across best?
When you smile. Smiling is a plus. Here's the research. Let me just say this. Sometimes when we get that energy going, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
We know that when you smile, when you're delivering information, people see you better, hear you better, and are more likely to remember it and do something about it. So smiling is a plus, not a Cheshire grin necessarily if you don't feel like doing that, but just a nice smile on your face, because, by the way, this is cool information, and you're a very cool person for being willing to facilitate it.
The second thing, and this will only happen if you become comfortable and are comfortable with the facilitator guide, and that is have energy and enthusiasm.
Yep.
You are doing, I mean, let's face it, probably everybody on this call, you're already good supervisors. You're talking about something that hopefully you enjoy doing. I mean, I would hope so. But, you know, think about what parts of it do you love. I was recently talking with a COO, and he was talking about how he loves to actually coach people. And it was amazing listening to his voice over the phone when he was talking about this. And so we were talking about how does he craft his job to do more of that. So think about, where do you have energy and enthusiasm around supervision? How can you let that come through in what you're doing?
Let all that passion and zealousness show in your voice. Really use your voice. It's what keeps people interested and involved. It allows them to follow along better. So I always make it like a story, you know, like you're basically, this is a 90-minute session where you're going to storytell your way into how to be an exceptional supervisor. So people like it when you use lots of tonality and faster and slower and louder and softer, because it allows them to be more interested and engaged.
And then the final one is, unless there are only 2 or 3 people in the room. So if you're facilitating this for more than 3 people, 4 people, stand up as you're doing it. It will give you so much more energy to your voice, to your body, and that will come across much, much better. Because
the last thing we want to talk about, we really do want to leave a little bit of time for questions, and we will also let you know how to reach us or Joy or Sarah. It will be normal for you to feel some, I'm going to call it positive anxiety, right? Anytime we have to stand up, many of us, we could ask you to raise your hands. And I know Scott and I had our typical, I'm going to call it positive anxiety today as we were thinking about getting ready for this. So many of us are going to feel that anxious, oh my gosh, I'm about to lead a group in my organization in Supervision Excellence. So just a couple of things. Well, I don't assume. So what do you do? Type it out, right, real quickly. So for those of you that are comfortable or have been doing training, or you stand up, what are a couple of things you can do to help yourself? I'm going to say minimize that sort of little bit of thing in the stomach that we often feel when we're getting ready to put ourselves up in front of a group of people and be exceptional.
what do we do?
Type it out.
Pop some ideas.
We have
in
some
there.
good ideas, but you can tell us. What do you do? Give us some ideas on what you do. We could hum, Scott, but probably not.
No. All right.
Somebody's
There we go.
like it.
Practice ahead of time. Get organized. Take a deep breath.
Oh, that
Thank
deep
you.
breath thing.
Excellent.
How many deep breaths do you take, Scott?
3.
3 deep.
Get a good night's sleep the night before. Yeah, half of the people on this call would like that one. Practice ahead of time. Breathe.
Another breathe. How many deep breaths do you take before you start, Scott?
3.
3.
Hey, there we go.
There's real research about those 3 deep breaths. We really appreciate all you people who are giving us some great ideas. A couple of other thoughts as we watch the box. Rituals. Rituals.
Talk about rituals.
Oh,
Count backwards
that's
from
cool.
5.
I like it.
that.
That's cool. That's one we haven't heard. We really like that one. Who else is what here? A lot of eye contact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eye contact is critical.
Excellent suggestion.
Yeah. Keep the rest of the people in the room engaged.
Make
Very
sure
good.
you look at
Count.
everybody, not just one or two people. Really count. We've got another count.
Yeah.
Really good suggestions.
One of the other things that I tend to like to do prior to going in is I have and it's part of what Jan calls the ritual, I have a song.
Yeah.
And so
Get those headphones on.
think about a song that kind of gets you excited, but also makes you feel at your best. And so whether you are playing that on headphones before you start the session, whether it is in your mind, have something like that prepared.
What's your song, Scott?
Oh, of course. Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins, which is the theme for Top Gun. I'm sorry. It's just I've always loved that song. All right. So now that we've done that,
before we close, type in those questions. We're going to make a couple of suggestions. Oh, nice, Scott. Scott's been working on his visuals. Yeah,
so what questions do you have?
Let's
Let's see what we can answer very, very quickly so that everybody has some ideas on. So any questions on what we've shown you, on the training in a box, anything that's out there?
I actually expected a box. There was no box.
Of course you did, Jan. All right, let's see.
Ooh, Scott just did something really cool. Somehow he put
Oh, thank you very much, Kimberly. One of the best training sessions I participated in. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Information is transferable. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from me. Oh, look. Here we go. How do you give feedback when it's a long-standing issue or problem which is not fixed? Means a possible separate if it is not fixed. Oh my God, that's a whole webinar in and of itself.
But
we'll give you some thought.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, Claire, and I'm going to remember we said we try to keep answers under a minute. First of all, this is where it becomes critical to give behavioral. It's got to be done on a regular basis.
Timely.
And I think there has to be, I think in some ways, and I'm going to go out on a limb and I want to hear what Jan says, I think there's got to be an admission that possibly this hasn't been dealt with before. Because if it's your first time supervising that person and it's not been dealt with before, this is something I noticed, or one of our favorite phrases is, this is how this behavior impacts me. So make sure you're clear. Those are words, we find those are words that work. This is how this behavior impacts me. But it does need to be done on a ongoing basis, and there needs to be some sort of admission that probably we should have brought this up before.
And if you need a process, we do have a 6-step process, particularly if it means you might have to separate from them. I think there might be an intro web. We've done this webinar, I believe, on difficult conversations for the JCCA. I'm not 1,000% sure. But if you get back to us, send us an email or talk to Sarah perhaps, we can either do one or two things. If we've done it for the JCCA, you can look on to their intro website. Otherwise, we can give you a 6-step easy process that you can use. Next question.
How do you suggest your supervisor not to bring their cell phone to a meeting? You were discussing this during a big presentation. Go ahead, Jan.
Oh, thanks, Scott. I'm going to tell my supervisor not to bring a phone to the meeting. Wow, this is a tricky one. Maybe, I'm trying to think about it. I'm sure I'm going to give the gender of supervisors upper management. Oh, great. Make it just that much harder for us. Thank you.
And I'll bet it's a guy.
Yeah, it's
so I'm just guessing.
Scott and I do a lot of gender workshops, so we have fun with this one. It's a woman. Oh, please, you're just making it harder and harder as we go. What can I say? No, we have some thoughts.
Okay, so Hannah, first thing I would suggest, by creating rules of engagement around the room that everybody agrees with, that actually helps. So even if they bring it to the meeting, we don't mind people bringing their cell phones to the meeting.
Right.
As long as they put them on vibrate, put them in their pocket, put them away. And so that's, so you can let them bring it to the meeting, but then when you do rules of engagement, it's like, if nobody else brings it up, just be able to say, we understand some people may have emergencies or whatever, take them off the table. And remember, if you walk out during the middle of this, you're bothering other people.
Well, we could give you, Hannah, if you go into the web, that would be the World Wide Web, type into your URL, cell phones on the table, and then type in MIT, and they'll give you the research, and you can anonymously email it to your supervisor.
That's true. Well, yeah, because your supervisor may not even realize that they're actually hurting their dialogues. They're actually hurting their dialogues by doing that.
Actually, you could use our 6-step process to talk to your supervisor.
Kimberly said, who do we email to get the 6 steps for feedback?
Why don't we just email them? You know what? We all, Sarah, who's running this, has all the email addresses, and
we can send her.
We'll double check with Sarah about whether there's the intra-web. I swear we did how to do difficult conversations. But if not, we'll email it.
Yeah, we'll get that.
If you want it, you can use it, and if you don't want it, and so Ms. Hannah, you can try that strategy with yours as well. Because I think it actually could work. They may not do anything about it, but at least you could try.
Yep. Any other questions? All right. Well, there are no other questions coming through, so we're gonna wrap this up. So here's really what we tried to do today, and what we've tried to do in this entire training in a box. And that is, this is about scalability. Honestly, Jan and I would absolutely love to be in all of your JCCs doing all of this training. Okay, I'm speaking for myself.
Oh, we all would, but you need more resources.
And that's exactly, we need you.
Yes.
And thank you for volunteering, or maybe being volunteered, to do this. And what we hope is that through the facilitator's guide we've given you, through the PowerPoint that we've offered, and through this session, you at least now have a comfortability in terms of how you want to deal with this. And so it's been our pleasure to work with you today on this. And one final slide that we want to remind you about, and that is on every single Train the Trainer, not every single trainer, I'm sorry, on every single training in a box you will get a final page that will say action plan, and it will look very similar to this. So this is the one that we picked off from the supervisory one, and that is to ask people in the room to be definitive about the new strategies or behavior they're going to try, and find somebody in the room who will hold them accountable. Because one of the things we know from psychology is when you have to answer to someone, you are more likely to do it. And so this is that final page, and this becomes a critical page when you have finished the workshop, to get people to write down. We have them actually say it out loud. What are people going to commit to? And we go around the room. And then who is there going to be accountability partner? On that note.
So thank you, and you can call us or email us. We'll be happy to help, and as I know, Joy or Sarah will be as well. And it's really a fun thing. We've got some more fun things planned. So thank you for being, as Scott said, thank you for being willing to help your JCC individuals be better at what they do.
Thank you, and enjoy the summer, and we are going to turn it back over.
Great. Thank you to Jan and Scott for providing this amazing, wonderful tool for all of us to be able to use at our JCCs. Make sure you do your preparation. Make sure you set up your rooms the way that was suggested. If you have any questions at all about the facilitator's guide, you can email me or Sarah, and we'll be able to help you navigate some of the work with this, as well as get you set up with the online recording of this webinar and all the materials, which will be posted on jcca.me in a couple of days. So if you know people at your JCC who were not able to participate in this webinar, certainly you can direct them to this recording of this webinar, as well as the materials that will all be posted there. And as we said, this is a series. This is the first of a series, and we plan on launching another one in the fall. And hopefully you'll be able to give us some idea about how you used the materials and how many people you trained and how it went for you. As Jan and Scott said, it gets easier. It gets easier every time you do some kind of staff training or public speaking, and we're certainly here to help you be successful. So thank you very much. Thank you to Sarah for helping us with the logistics of this. Thank you for Jan and Scott for being such great thought partners and for putting this material together. And thank you all for spending the afternoons with us. And we look forward to the next training. Have a great summer, great safe summer at camps for those of you who are involved in camp. And we'll speak with you soon. Thank you so much.